Welcome to People Love Process. When it comes to creating and building vector-based designs, thinking in shapes will help you figure out how to approach any project using simple geometric forms via the shape tools and Pathfinder methods in Adobe Illustrator. So in this movie, I want to demonstrate this for you as I create an iconic brand character design for a friend's podcast. Now, my friend's podcast is called Nerd Radio. They talk about nerdy topics like technology and sci-fi and movies and comic books. And because that has comic books in it, I was thinking superhero, kind of nerdy, techie, superhero type character, not a human-based one. This is almost like a cute little cyborg type superhero. I worked out an end mark that we're going to work into Logotype, but this is just all my thumbnail drawing, whether it's the character itself, whether it's details that I'm probably going to make this more round instead of hexagon, or I'm thinking maybe they could have a seal with the character in it and the custom logotype that we're going to lock up with it. But because we're working in geometric shapes, you don't have to draw it in a refined fashion. You can keep it rough because it's going to be those geometric shape building tools like the ellipse tool, like the square tool that we're going to use to create it. Now, this means we're going to use guides. And one thing I want to tell you is for 15 years, I used Macromedia Freehand. And in freehand, guides were not considered objects. In Illustrator, they are. And at times, you can have them embedded in a group of objects. You might have a guide, and you might have tried to copy from one file to another, and it says it exceeds the width or whatever, the error message comes up. That's because you have a guide embedded in your art. And so before you ever do that, go to View, go to Guides, and you'll want to, with the object selected, click on Clear Guides. So if there's a guide in there, you'll remove it. That way you can paste it into another file. Now, that kind of irritated me when I moved to Illustrator. So I had a friend of mine who does coding, works for Microsoft, and I said, hey, could you write me a script where whatever it is, let's say it's a complex illustration, I have guides all over the places. I've been working on it for 3 days in multiple layers of my file. All these different guides everywhere. And I also have some of it embedded or nested within groups of objects. Could you make it to write a script where I can just click on it and it will just take guides wherever they are and shove it on a layer and name that layer guides? And that's what this is here. And he did. So included in the exercise file for this movie, if you want to put it to use, I've included that script. To access scripts, just go to File, go down to Scripts, and you can see all these custom scripts I've had made over the years, but this is the one I've included in the exercise file. So you can run this script. All you have to do is click on this, and it'll take guides wherever they are in your file, shove them to a layer. That way you don't lose them, and you know they're not going to get embedded in your art. So I just wanted to share that. I'm using guides here because we're using geometric tools. And if we think in shapes, we know what tool can build that shape that we're going to build. If we're looking at his head, it's circular. Do we have to use the ellipse tool? Well, you could, but you don't have to. In Illustrator, you would probably want to start with a square. You can direct select these two anchor points, use the corner widget, and just round those like that. That's fine. And we can go down here. And we can go ahead and direct select these anchors, bring them down, snap them to this guide here. And this is where I use both methods, whether it's the corner widget natively in Illustrator, but I also use a plugin because I like the plugin a lot more. It existed 6 years prior to 6 years before Illustrator added the corner widget, and they kind of implemented it in a bad way, and I think. Because if you're not super zoomed in, you can accidentally trigger if you're trying to direct select an anchor point on a corner and trigger the rounding. And that just bugs me. So that's why at times I'll usually go to View and I'll just turn on Hide Corner Widget to avoid that if I'm building certain features. We're going to go to the plugin I use, which is Dynamic Corners. Comes with its own palette here, and you don't have to pre-select an anchor to activate. You just hover over and it gives you a preview. Yep, you can round this. So I can just go like this, and I might visually look at this and I go right around, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, something around 80 like that. That's fine. Then I can apply that exact same radius to this one by clicking on it. So it remembers it. That's why I kind of like it. Now, continuing shape building, thinking in shapes. Obviously, his eyes here are based off of circles. This inset of his helmet of sorts that he's wearing are circular, so we can use two circular shapes there. And now what I want to do is I can go ahead and select both of these, go to the dynamic corners. And I like it because it knows, even though these are circles, they don't have to be. We can just select this and I can round it or pull out these corners from these circles like this. And so that's what I'm going to do here, just to make it almost like the 10 Commandments tablets. We'll just select both of these. We'll go ahead and unite them like that. And now we have this shape. And what I want to do next is kind of how I think when I'm building. So, and to select the zoom tool like that. We're going to zoom in. I want to pay attention to the side of this shape here to the edge of this shape here. I want to know what that distance is. And so this is where the control panel comes in. If you don't have that open, make sure to turn it on by going to Window Control, because it's great for this kind of shape building. I can snap on because I have Smart Guides turned on, Command U, turn it on and off. And I can hover. I know I'm over the anchor on this edge of this shape. Then I can draw a rectangle and snap to this edge and stop. Now I can select this shape and it gives me this readout here. This is the width I need. Now if I take this shape and I go to the other side, it should be exactly the same, like this. Let's go ahead and zoom in and check that. This is a little thicker. Let's sample it to get it like that. And I I just caught an error. I goofed up somehow. Let's go to keyline view. Oh yeah, it's a little off. How'd I manage that? Okay, not sure how I managed that, but I'm glad I checked, because that would have caused a problem down the line. So if I select this and select this, focus by holding Option down on this shape and going to align and going center, it should nudge it a little to left or right, that is. And that looks better. So somehow that must have moved. Interesting. Let's go ahead and reestablish this. So this is now, yep, it's a different number. Now this should match the other side now. So let's bring it over here, and that looks accurate now. Okay, well, pay attention or else you're going to make mistakes. You would have saw a mistake either like that, or if I moved on, you would have seen that what I'm going to do next wouldn't have matched up. Okay, well, that's good. Always be checking stuff like that. So we're going to copy this number now. This is the width of the shape we created. So I'll go ahead and copy that to my clipboard. We don't need that shape. I think I copied it. Let's do it again, just be safe. Command C. Then we can get rid of this shape. We're going to select this helmet shape, and we're going to do an offset. So we'll go to Path. We'll go to Offset Path. We're going to punch in a negative because we want it to go inward, and we're going to punch in our number, and we'll go Preview. That looks accurate. I'll take a rectangle shape for no other reason than to edit, because we don't need the top part. And I'll go to Pathfinder and I'll go minus front. Let's go ahead and zoom in, make sure that's lining up. Yep, that's lining up. Now, if I wouldn't have corrected that alignment with this shape, with the helmet shape, there would have been a little stair step right where these come together, and it shouldn't be there now. There you go. That looks good. And now this shape is for no other reason than to edit the bottom of the helmet, because there's going to be a gap between that and his torso. So we'll just trim that off. That looks good. Let's move on to his headphones, simple rectangular shapes. And again, you don't have to use a plugin. You can do everything I'm showing you rounding wise with the corner widget. You just might have to think a little differently. Instead of being able to round a square, you'd start with a square and add those rounds in to create those kind of, I don't know, scale shapes that we had on this part of the eye. But if I direct select all of these, we can use the corner widget and just do all the rounds on his headphones like that. With those selected, we'll just go Unite and double check appearance, make sure it's a compound. That's great because we're going to take this shape and copy it, Command C, Command F. Let's go ahead and fill it blue, move it to the layer we're on, select the headphones and go minus front, which trims it because I want that nice edge of the helmet to go up and just sweep by and make the edge kind of align visually with the edge of the headphones into the top of his head. But we also want to do an offset of the helmet that will become the top part of the headphones, the part that sits on top of your head. So we're going to go offset path here, and we'll do offset 12.5. I'm working in points. Click OK. That's great. We'll go to the scissor tool. I'm going to cut these here because we don't need the bottom part. We can just delete that. The gap we're going to have in between like the helmet and the torso and all these other shapes that make up his body is 5 points. So I'm going to go to stroke here and match that tolerance because we want to carry that continuity through everything. Once we've done that, now we'll expand it by going to path, outline stroke, turns into shape, select the eyedropper, and just turn it into an outline. So I just created the shape that's going to make up the top of his headphone. Now, when I'm building in shapes, strokes helps. I created the top of the headphones like that, but I'm also going to use that same principle on the inward part of his eye, almost these kind of shutter looking shapes going through his eye here, and the interior shape of this one. All of these will just bump up to 5. That'll match that aesthetic. The outside shapes, we'll beef those up a little more. Those will be 7, like that. So it's easier sometimes just to think in shapes, but think using strokes to create those shapes. Now, like we expanded the headphone, we'll ultimately expand the eyes as well. So that's how you can think when you're creating like this. Let's focus on the wings. Just think of the overall shape of the wings. If you look over here, you can tell my drawing's not perfect. It actually bends downward. But if you just think in straight lines, straight line here, straight line here, straight line all the way here, straight line here. That's all I did on the left. I created the basic shape without any of the curves. Don't need to worry about the curves. We can add those later. Then I'm going to use these to create these gaps that are forming each part of the wing. So I'm going to take this path, and go Option Command B, which will blend those shapes. Click on the blend tool in the toolbar, and we'll go specifically to specified steps. We only have 2 gaps in our wings, so we need to punch in 2. You can preview it. That looks good. Click OK. We'll expand this like that. You might have to ungroup it. Then we're going to take the top and bottom we don't need. We'll just delete them. And on these 2, we'll go to the strokes panel and select round caps because we want these to be nicely rounded as shown here in the drawing. And now all we have to do is expand these or turn these outlines or outline the strokes. So they're now shapes. We can sample with the eyedropper that. We'll go ahead and unite these 2 shapes, making sure they're on top. Let's just color it. You can see it's on top. So I'll select the wing, those shapes minus front. Now we have most of this wing built. So we can just zoom in now, and this is where you can use the corner widget. If you pre-select these, you might want all of these tips the same kind of tolerance. So, and it helps because it's kind of hard to see things if you're zoomed out when you're doing this kind of subtle rounding. So this is even, we could even be zoomed in a little further here, but that's how I'd add those rounds in it. This is why I like using this tool, because I don't like assuming all of them should be the same round all the time. I like doing one at a time. So I'll just hover over this corner, you can see it gives me a preview letting me know you can round it. But in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and visually do it. I want it about, that looks good. And then I can just click the other corners I want to apply that same tolerance to, like this. And there, like that. And on this one, maybe not so much, maybe about 15, and that looks good. Now, because we're doing a symmetric design, I can just select this, copy it, Command-C, Command-F, go to the Reflect tool, find a central anchor point. That's why I use Smart Guides, Command-U to turn them on and off, and then reflect it over, and we get all the content we need on the opposite side of his helmet, like that. Let's go back and do another shape blend. This is for Wi-Fi. Since this is a podcast, I thought that kind of added a nice touch. We can select these two elliptical shapes. And again, go Option, Command-B to blend it. Go to the Blend tool. Go to the specified steps. Here, we only want 4 steps. Click OK. That's great. Now we can go to Object. We can go Expand. That will, you might have to ungroup it. Then we'll go back to Object, and we'll go Outline Stroke, and we'll go Unite. Make sure it's a compound. Then this is where I just created this shape to define the edge of these Wi-Fi shapes. So I'll select both of these and go Intersect, which will create a new shape wherever they overlap. And now we have everything we need. I can clone this, Command-C, Command-F. I say clone, just I'm doing 2 commands that are assigned to an F3 keyboard shortcut. I'm just going here, it's just doing Command-C, then it's doing a Command-F, and that creates a clone shape. It's just I never do that. I've applied that as an action to the F3 key, so I can just hit one button. It does those 2 commands. Then I can select the reflection tool, find a central anchor point. Now, if you want to know how to set up your own custom keyboards, there's a movie on People Love, so just go back earlier and you can see that, and it'll show you how you can use it and set up your own. Really speeds up the build process. Here's the torso shapes for his body. Now, we've already used strokes to create the band on the headphones, the Wi-Fi signals, but at times it's just easier to create using strokes. So if I select these strokes here, and we'll go ahead and just color them blue so you can see that they're sitting on top of the other ones. And we go to stroke. I want this to match that gap we have going between the torso and the head and the other elements here. And that's 5 points. So I'm going to retain that continuity. And once I beef it up, now I'll just go to Path. I'll go Outline Stroke. Now I'll go Unite. Select this torso shape and minus front to punch it through, ungroup it. That way I can select elements and color them once I get to that stage. So this is how I would use geometric methods combined with strokes. They go hand in hand to create the base artwork. The final base artwork looks like this. We can go ahead and turn off these layers now. And now that I have this base artwork, I have everything figured out, but not everything's ready to go. So like for instance, on his headphones here, we trim those, and we'll just do that again. I would do something like this where I'd unite them. Then I would take this head shape, make a copy of it. We'll just color it blue. So it's sitting on top of these headphones that have minus front, just to create that nice continuity where your eye is going to carry through. Even though these will be colored the same, your eye will carry along right through. So I pay attention to that kind of detail. These are just strokes. So all we have to do is expand those. So we go Path, Outline Strokes, turn those all to shapes, and hit Unite. So now they're all shapes. If we sample with eyedropper, you can see that. And then at times, I'll set up all the artwork like this. So if we go to the head, we have this inset shape of the head. I'll just make sure that's in front like this, and we'll select the background shape of that head, and I'll minus front. So we're creating a weird looking donut. So if I color this blue, you can see what that looks like. That's all I've done there. I'll go ahead and copy this, select these shapes, paste behind those shapes, because all I want to do now is take this rectangle, and from the edge of the mic this character is wearing, this headphone mic, to the bottom edge of this shape, it's 5 points again. So I'll just select this, minus front. That creates a nice gap here like this. This is an offset of the end of the mic, and that's going to sit on top of the mouth. So I can select the mouth, that shape, go minus front, creates a gap there. Looks like I had a double shape, so we can get rid of that. And then I'd take shapes that make up the mic itself, and I'd go ahead and unite those together. Ultimately, with this one, I would unite it with the helmet. Let's just get rid of this fill now. And that's how I'd start cleaning up the artwork and unifying all those shapes to work together. So let's go ahead and jump to the base art. Once I clean all that up and establish base black and white, this is what it looks like. Notice I put gaps up here just to reinforce that the headphones are actually in front of the little antenna with these Wi-Fi signals coming out. But you can see all the gaps used, whether it's between the mic and the helmet, the elements in the body and the torso, they all have the same tolerance, and that really unifies the look and feel. Now on this one, we're going to keep the colors very simplified. So I'll just select one area. That will be dark blue, and everything else will be light blue. And I think this works really great together. This brand character can be simplified and provided in a bunch of formats, whether it's as we just created, or maybe it's just a one color, the dark blue, or maybe it's the light blue and we created an offset going around everything so it would still read the same way as it reads on a white background. Or you can make that almost like a sticker where it's offset with white and everything sitting on top of it. This was the logotype we created, the little icon to go with it, and locked up with the design. This is what it looks like. And this is where I think it would work really great for a sticker. Now they do a podcast, so they could get stickers made and put them on their laptops if they decide to do it anywhere. You saw in the original thumbnail sketch, I sketched out a seal type badge design, and that's what this is. So it shows the context, official, audio, nerdvana, authentic fandom culture. So tech, TV, toys. Oh yeah, toys and games and books. So they're all over the map with any kind of nerdy type of thing. I really like how this came out, and I really like taking designs like this and making sure they work on a dark or colorized background, because it just gives them the ability to merchandise it, and that helps support what they like to do, which is podcasting. So remember, before you attempt to build any vector-based design, analyze the forms with your drawing and figure out what you can build using basic shapes, using the elliptical tool or the rectangle tool. Once you've determined that, then you'll realize what shapes would be best created using the pen tool. I used the pen tool, but it was in very sparingly, not a whole lot. Most of this was created with shapes, but some of it was done with the pen tool when I did the flame, for example, at the bottom. Those aren't basic shapes. That's only free-form type shape in this entire design. So most often it'll be a combination of both the pen tool and shape building methods working together in order to create your artwork more precisely and quickly. Using both methods will help equip you to create any design and do it with precision. That's key. You want the craftsmanship. If you enjoy this content or have a question you'd like to ask me, just leave a comment below. I'll respond to it. If you'd like to access the exercise file for any movie on this channel, you can find a link within the description below each video. So make sure to check that out. Remember, members get bonus content and behind the scenes information that I share with them. And if you simply subscribe, it also helps me continue making unique content for this channel. So thank you for the support as well. I really do appreciate it. Thank you again for watching People of Process. And as always, I hope this content helps you to improve your own creative process.